Here we are at part 3 of the Basics of Long-Term Care in Wisconsin, put on in conjunction with the Learning and Retirement series. The first topic we're going to tackle here are alternatives to long-term care insurance. There are alternatives, and really, though, there is one big one that is casting a shadow on all of these alternatives, and that would be Medicaid. It's not Medicare, Medicaid. And if you're not familiar what Medicaid has to do with long-term care, the basics would be that it will help you pay for your long-term care if you qualify. So Medicaid contracts with facilities, most facilities, at least nursing home facilities in this state, to pay to ensure essentially a certain rate for each resident on Medicaid that goes to that facility. The resident will give typically majority of their income to the facility, and then Medicaid covers the shortfall. Now that could be significant if somebody has say a single individual has a $2,500 a month income and the facility charges $8,500 a month, then that would be a $6,000 monthly benefit from Medicaid. So, but not everybody can qualify for Medicaid. That's the thing, is that there are very stringent income and asset limitations. The biggest thing that would determine what those would be would whether you are a single applicant for Medicaid or a married applicant. So if we look at those limitations, starting with single applicants, first of all, as it comes to income, all of the individual's income from any source, typically, for the most part, that's what we're going to concern ourselves with, will be any source, will be going straight to the facility, except for the health insurance premium. So you'd be talking about your Medicare Part B monthly premium and a $45 a month monthly personal needs allowance. So, and that'd be it. Everything else goes right to the facility. Medicaid covers the shortfall. Assets. The member, before they qualify, they are allowed to have only a house, one vehicle. That could mean a car or a truck. It could mean a boat. Could mean a snowmobile. Prearranged funeral or burial services, and additional assets that can total to no more than $2,000. Usually this would just be cash in a bank account, and that'd be it. If they have anything more than these assets here, they would not qualify. For married individuals, it's a little more lenient, particularly when it comes to income. So the community spouse, that'd be the spouse who's still at home, can keep all of his or her income from any source, all of it. The institutionalized spouse, the one that's in the facility, just like for the single individual, is supposed to give all of his or her income to the facility, save for the premiums for health insurance and for the $45 monthly allotment. But if the community spouse does not have a significant income, if it's low, there actually is an amount. If it's below, I don't have the exact figure in front of me, so I won't try to guess. But if it isn't enough to maintain a decent lifestyle, then they are allowed to siphon off a part or all of the institutionalized spouse's income to make their income sufficient to live on. There's paperwork to go about doing that. Now, for assets, the couple may keep everything that the single individual can keep. So the house, one vehicle still, even though it's two people, one vehicle, prearranged funeral or burial services for the both of them. And the community spouse, the one who's at home, can keep their qualified retirement accounts. So IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, Roths, all of those for the community spouse are hands off. And additional assets that can total up to, as you see, just under $130,000 in value. It's not always going to be that high. It could be as low as $50,000 or technically even lower. But absent any unusual circumstances, the maximum, aside from everything else that they can keep right there, as you see, is $128,640. That tends to go up every year by some degree. So if you are above the asset limit, whether you're single or you're married, what are some steps you can take to get down to the asset limit so you can become Medicaid eligible? The first is to spend down. So you would liquidate your excess assets and spend on your care, or you can make excluded purchases. So if you buy a newer house or a newer vehicle, those would be excluded. If you pay for your funeral in advance, that would be excluded. Money put into the community spouse's retirement account, if it can still be done, that would also make it excluded as well. Give your assets away is another avenue so gifting, that some people would look at. That can be problematic. It results in a complete loss of control of those assets for the applicant, and there can be some adverse tax consequences, both for the gifter and the recipient of the gift. If there's one thing that I like to harp on, is an important rule, is do not give your house away. Some people ask, okay, I'm getting older, when should I put my house in my children's name? 99% of the time, if we're using whole numbers, I'm going to say never. So you lose because you have legal protections over your residence. And particularly if you're married, you can keep your residence and still be Medicaid eligible. You can keep it when you're single as well, although they would put a lien on it. That's a topic for another day. But you can also have other legal protections over your residence. And if you gift it to your children, you're also likely giving them an immense tax time bomb. That would be in the area of capital gains taxes. That probably would not come up or would be avoided entirely if you didn't gift it to them during your lifetime. If you waited until it was passed to them after the death of either the Medicaid recipient or the spouse, you could be avoiding a lot of taxes depending on the situation. So the smartest alternative to long-term care insurance would be planning with a Medicaid trust. I do a lot of work when it comes to estate planning with revocable trust, but I also do a good amount of work with Medicaid trusts, which are a component of estate planning and long-term care planning. Assets that are owned by these Medicaid trusts, they do not have to be spent down. The Medicaid does not make you sell whatever extra property or spend whatever extra funds you have in these trusts. You keep your legal protections over your residence, and you avoid the tax time bomb for your family. They're still going to get a step up in cost basis, so they can save a lot on capital gains taxes, which could be in the area of tens of thousands of dollars if you do it incorrectly. But planning with one of these trusts, you avoid that issue. Here's what you should be aware of if you are going to be planning with Medicaid trust, is they are irrevocable. So we're not talking about revocable living trusts here. Irrevocable. These are irrevocable trusts. They are not nearly as easy to adjust, at least in some areas, as your simple revocable trust plan. You do give up a good amount of control over your assets. You would be naming somebody else as trustee, likely a family member. You can still maintain a lot of strings in there, though, so to make sure that the assets are not going to be misused. And they are expensive to establish Medicaid trust. Traditionally, you'd be looking at the cost of what could be 2 to 4 annual long-term care insurance premiums to establish a Medicaid trust. You probably double or more the cost of a revocable living trust, which you would use for basic estate planning. So they are costly, but when even pitted up against one monthly bill at any nursing home in the area, all of a sudden the cost doesn't look too bad. They tend to be less than that. They're in the thousands, though. I mean, I don't charge in the 5 figures. I wouldn't be surprised if some attorneys do. Maybe not in Wisconsin, but they can be expensive. So, but it'd be an investment that you'd be making to ensure that the most important assets that you have are not going to be lost because you happen to be lucky enough, and I was going to be lucky enough to live to an age where you require some additional help. You have to be mindful of the look-back period, whether you are when you're doing any sort of long-term care planning. So let me see, I can pull this up. Yeah, it applies to gifts, any gifts that you make, and to transfers to a Medicaid trust. All right, here we go. I could explain it to you, but I made an animated video some time ago that I think would probably be better to explain it. So this is about 2 minutes long. I won't make you watch the whole thing.
When it comes to Medicaid qualification, there is no set of rules more daunting than those that govern the look-back period. Here's how it works. In Wisconsin, generally, when you apply for Medicaid benefits, you will be asked about your current assets, but you'll also be asked about assets that you gave away or sold within the past 5 years. That 5 years is the look-back period, during which Medicaid will evaluate gifts you made or transactions you were involved in and determine if any were divestments. A divestment is any gift you made or sale of assets you made in which you did not receive fair market value in return. If Medicaid discovers any divestment during the look-back period and determines that they were made for the purpose of Medicaid qualification, you will receive a penalty. That penalty will be a period of time during which you will be ineligible for Medicaid benefits. Here's how that's calculated. Medicaid takes the total value of all your divestments made during the look-back period and divides that by an amount that equals the average daily nursing home private pay rate. That amount is adjusted frequently. Currently, as of November 2018, that amount is $286.15. So, if your divestments during the look-back period total $100,000, for example, your penalty period will be 349 days. Unfortunately, that penalty period doesn't start until you are otherwise eligible for Medicaid, meaning after you've applied for benefits and after you've lowered your assets to the Medicaid limits. In other words, Medicaid will wait until you really need the help before they penalize you. It sounds cruel, but it's the law. Fortunately, with smart long-term care planning,
and the rest is just a quick ad for my office, so I don't need to see that here. All right, so there's going to be one other topic that I want to be included in this, and it's very, very important. It's another video. It's about 7 minutes long. It's about the future health of Wisconsin's long-term care facilities and the system that we have in place. So this started up right here. One last thing I want you to be aware of. Very, very, very important.
Facility abruptly announcing that it was closing its doors for good. And many are now in the dark. Incredibly stressful day for the family members of patients.
Don't know where they're going, and then you just see people with dementia. Any type of change there is, it affects them, and they can.
People were in the hallway crying, and even the staff was crying.
Not only is it staff left without a job, but many family members say they're overwhelmed to have to quickly find a home for their loved ones.
On February 27, 2019, all 105 residents of Wellspring Rehab and Nursing Center in Milwaukee were informed that the facility would be closing immediately and that they had 1 day to leave. It's newsworthy because the circumstances are so tragic and outlandish. But make no mistake, what happened with Wellspring is not an anomaly. For Wisconsin, it's a harbinger of things to come. I'm Joe McClear of McClear Law Office, Oshkosh Elder Law and Estate Planning, and this is Wisconsin's looming long-term care crisis. Let's start off by stating a fact that is not in dispute. We're getting older. I'm sure you and I are, but the whole state of Wisconsin is getting older. According to the 2010 census, about 13.7% of Wisconsin's 5.7 million residents was 65 or older. But that number is changing drastically. According to the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, by the year 2040, the total population of Wisconsin will have increased about 14%. But the population of residents 65 and older will have increased over 97%. And the population of residents 85 and older, almost 140%. With age, of course, comes challenges, the most harrowing of which may be dementia, an affliction that has touched the lives of so many Wisconsin residents. In 2015, it was estimated that 115,000 Wisconsin residents suffered from dementia. And with our aging population, that number is expected to double by 2040 to just under 250,000 people. With these figures, one would think that one industry in particular would be doing quite well, skilled nursing facilities. One would have to think that a new nursing home would be popping up every other week in Wisconsin. But that's not what's happening. In fact, Wellspring Rehab and Nursing Center was one of over 30 skilled nursing facilities to shut down since just the beginning of 2016, with several more teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. When you look at the details surrounding these closures, one common factor starts to emerge: Medicaid. Here's a primer on how Medicaid works with relation to nursing care. Nursing homes are, of course, expensive. According to Genworth, the median cost for even a semi-private room in a nursing home in Wisconsin is now about $100,000 a year. In general, for folks who need skilled nursing care but can't afford it, Medicaid will step in to help cover those costs. Perhaps you knew that, but here's something maybe you did not know. When a resident in a nursing home is on Medicaid, the nursing home actually receives in pay less than it costs to care for that resident. Almost a third less. That equates to a shortfall of about $70 to $80 every day for every resident on Medicaid. How bad is this shortfall? According to one 2016 study on state Medicaid programs, it's the absolute worst in the nation. These losses add up, and for some facilities they become unbearable. In fiscal year 2017-2018, 94 facilities in Wisconsin lost over $1 million caring for Medicaid residents. In total, throughout the state, there was a shortfall of over $300 million. In order to stay afloat, facilities have had to respond in two ways. The first is upping the bill for the private pay residents. As I said earlier, it's about $100,000 per year to privately pay for just a semi-private room in a nursing home, and almost $113,000 per year for a private room. And those costs are expected to jump up significantly in the coming years and decades. Genworth projects a private room to top $150,000 per year by 2029 and $200,000 per year by 2039. The second way nursing facilities have had to respond is by cutting expenditures. And where this hits the hardest is staff. Nursing facilities are having a hard time attracting and retaining employees because they can't afford to pay a competitive wage. In fact, right now, the median hourly wage for direct care workers in Wisconsin is about $10.75 an hour. Compare that to the median hourly wage of unskilled entry-level workers in general being $12 an hour, and you know there's going to be a problem. And a problem there is, and it's a big one. Currently, about 1/5 of all caregiver positions in Wisconsin are vacant. That's about 16,000 positions. And in 2018, 54% of all open caregiver positions had 0 applicants. So, nursing homes are hemorrhaging cash, and they can't fill their caregiver roles. It's a recipe for disaster. Leading Age Wisconsin is a large and influential advocacy group for long-term care facilities in the state, and their projections are about as dire as you can get.
You will see the counties turn darker red as nursing facility beds fill up each county, and the graph to the right will show needed beds in red and estimated capacity in blue. Here's what will happen as our population ages. As you see here, we will likely run out of capacity as a state by the year 2027, less than 8 years from now.
2027. It's terrifying, but there is hope. Since these projections were made, Wisconsin passed its 2019 to 2021 biennial budget, and it included an increase in Medicaid reimbursement of 6.5%, almost triple the normal increase. This is significant, but some fear it may not be enough, and our nursing facilities will continue to be underfunded and staffing issues will persist. Which is why it is so important for the citizens of Wisconsin to make the preservation and proliferation of our skilled nursing facilities a top issue, and we need our elected representatives to understand this. So please, contact your state representatives and let them know how important this issue is. I did, and they listened. But I and everyone who has been fighting for long-term care support in Wisconsin need your help. Because this issue is not going to fix itself. And if we don't do something soon, it will be a disaster. For our grandparents, for our parents, and eventually, for all of us. Okay, that's it for the basics of long-term care in Wisconsin. Thank you very much. Again, I encourage you, if you're not familiar, if you're not viewing this by way of introduction through the Learning and Retirement series, I encourage you again to look them up, Oshkosh Learning and Retirement. Just on Google. You can also find more information about my practice at www.mclearlaw.com. Thank you very much.